Hello, it's Griff, and I'm in humble Redwood State Park. Isn't it beautiful here? Let me get out of the way. Isn't this beautiful? I'm in an ephemeral creek. Ephemeral means that it doesn't have water in it year-round, so when it rains, there's water flowing in this creek, and it empties out into the Ill River, South Fork of the Ill River. So ooh and ah over that. Yay! California is such an amazing place to be. We have a lot of biodiversity. In fact, a third of the species in the United States can be found right here in California. We have more rare plants than a lot of other states have plants, period. We are a global biodiversity hotspot, okay? This is the hotspot. So what does that mean? Hold on, I gotta bring your guys' comments up. First of all, biodiversity means variety of life, okay? Hey, Robin. Variety of life. So we have a great amount of variety of life, but we also have global significant variety of life. Like redwoods, the tallest trees in the world are right here in humble Redwood State Park. And everywhere on the planet, just about, biodiversity is being threatened. So a couple of years ago, former Governor Jerry Brown did an executive order and created the Biodiversity Initiative and Biodiversity Day, which is September 7th. So between now and September 7th, actually September 12th, you're going to hear me talk a lot about biodiversity, and I'm going to tell you about really fun things you can do with the iNaturalist app. So if you don't know about that, look it up and download it to your phone. Excuse me. And we're going to have Facebook Lives and interviews with interesting people who do stuff to protect, restore, and teach about biodiversity, okay? This is a great place to do that, but there's biodiversity wherever you live. In fact, I fell in love with biodiversity in an urban old lady's backyard. My grandmother's backyard was amazing. So she was Depression era. So her and her grandmother were homeless during the Depression. And so she knew what a hard time was like. And so in her house was really interesting because you could open a drawer and it'd be full of rubber bands, or another drawer and it'd be full of bread ties. She was the original environmentalist. She fixed everything. She recycled everything. She reused everything. She was amazing. And she had a way with plants. She grew a lot of her own food. Her backyard was like an oasis. There was tons of vegetable plants. There was fruit trees, and she would graft all kinds of different flavors of apples on the apple tree. There was a big redwood in her backyard. There was a shady spot where she had redwood plants, okay, and a pond with turtles. And well, she had my turtle over there. I'd bring my turtle over for visits, but she had frogs and toads in there. She had succulents and cactuses. And if you ever had a sick plant, you can bring it to my grandma and she would make it better. She made her own compost. She was amazing. She was an amazing grandma. And a lot of my early memories and a lot of my early interests in biodiversity start in her backyard. So I always wanted a garden like my grandma. And so when I was 7 years old, my parents moved into a brand new house on the edge of suburbia, and we had this yard, and it was full of star thistle. You guys know what star thistle is? It's the most prolific invasive plant in California. It's probably covers like 15% of California by now. Horrible plant, star thistle. And that's what was occupying this whole backyard. And I was like 7 years old. And my father was like, if you clear all the star thistle in the backyard, I'll give you a section of it. So I was out there, and star thistle's horrible. It's got long yellow spines. And when you walk through it, it destroys your leg. It's like someone's doing hateful acupuncture on you. And you get bloody and everything. But I did it because I wanted my own little piece of the backyard because I knew exactly what I wanted to do with it. I wanted to recreate Grandma's oasis. So I told my grandma, and after I cleared everything, she brought over a big brown lunch bag full of her seeds, because she always saved her own seeds. And she told me what to do, you know, how to prepare the garden. And I was acting like a know-it-all because I had seen her do it before. So I was like, yeah, Grandma, we get them clods out and everything. And she's like, all right, now you go ahead and plant these seeds, rake them in, and come get me when you're done. I was like, I know, Grandma, I know. Because I was 7 and I knew everything. So I planted the seeds and everything, and I raked them all in. I went and got her, and I said, come on, good idea, Grandma. And she came out and she goes, did you plant all the seeds right side up? And I was like, cause inside I was like that, but in my face I didn't show it, because I was like, oh no, I didn't realize there was a right side up to seed planting. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, okay, well, if not, you might have roots growing up. So I went out there every day for 2 weeks when I watered, and I would lay on the ground and I'd look for little roots growing up because I wanted to flip them over before they bloomed under the ground, and everybody found out that I really didn't know what I was talking about. So I went out there every day, and I never saw any roots growing up. But I did see leaves that came out different shapes, and I figured out that there were so many different types of seeds in the bag that they would, when they sprouted, they'd have different kinds of leaves. So I looked and I noticed that. Still didn't see any roots. Pretty soon I saw some of them were having little buds on them, like they're about to flower, but I still didn't see any roots. Then I'd see snails come in, so I had to bring in Myrtle, the turtle, my box turtle. She had to eat the snails. Then I started seeing bugs come in, and then they started blooming, and I noticed that some of the flowers were big, like landing platforms, and butterflies got on them. Others were small and little tiny bees, little crazy looking green bees, all kinds of different bees were going in there. And I watched and I watched, and I never saw any roots growing up. So my grandma came out one day and she says, "Did you find any roots growing up?" And I said, "No, Grandma, I planted them all right side up." And she's like, "Have you ever seen roots growing straight up?" And I was like, "No." She's like, "That's because that doesn't happen." And then she laughed, and it took me a while. Then I laughed. But in that 2 weeks, my grandma was a prankster. She blames it on her family being from County Cork, Ireland. But she was fun, and I learned so much by watching really carefully so that I could flip these roots growing upside down, the upside down garden, so I can make it right side up. And I learned so much about biodiversity and difference and observation skills. And that's kind of what this Biodiversity Day is to me. It's a chance to really look, to get rid of the green blur and really see the biodiversity that exists in California. And you can create memories like this with your family by planting native plants and planting native seeds. It's one of the things they want you to do in the biodiversity roadmap for Biodiversity Initiative. You can learn about it by going cabiodiversityinitiative.org or cabiodiversityday.org. And you can have these kinds of experiences with your family. Every state has a native plant society, and I'm going to put a link. As soon as I get back to my office, I'm going to put a link, and you can find the native plant society in your state, and you can contact them, and they probably know where you can get native plant seeds and where you can get native plants if you don't have a native plant nursery that sells seeds near you. You want to make sure they're native to your area. So a good way to double check is to go to National Wildlife Federation's Native Plant Finder. You can just put in Native Plant Finder in Google, and you enter your zip code, and it tells you which plants are native to your area, okay? And that is very helpful. Doesn't work so well in California because we're so biodiverse. So it's probably best to go through California Native Plant Society's website, CalScape. Okay, CalScape. And I'll put all these links when I get back to my office. Probably be like an hour. So anyways, there is a lot of things that we can do for biodiversity, variety of life, and we need your help. And you know what, we're losing a lot of species, and there's a lot of bad news about that, but we're smart, compassionate, action-taking people, and we can do something about it. And supporting Biodiversity Day, okay, on September 7th and that whole week would be a great way to start. I'll also put some good links in for you of other ways that you can figure out how you can be part of the solution. And that's what our Facebook Lives often are about, how you can help biodiversity, and they're every day at 3 o'clock right here. And if you miss one, you can go to YouTube, North Coast Redwood District. That's our YouTube channel, North Coast Redwood District, and you can watch past ones. So thank you very much for all of you who care about biodiversity, and those of you who are planning on participating in Biodiversity Day. And thank you to all the wonderful grandmas who get their kids interested and their grandkids interested in biodiversity. I'm even trying to be a good grandma, but I'm not even a mom yet. I am a father to 2 little kitties, but if I ever was a grandma, I'd want to be just like mine. I love you, Grandma. I hope you guys all have a great weekend.